Japan is looking beyond the United States, and the countries it is looking towards are Australia and India. Japan's Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi is traveling to both countries this week with a clear agenda: deepen defense cooperation, expand military industrial partnerships, and build more resilient supply chains. And there is a bigger story here. Japan is preparing for a world where it cannot assume that America will always have enough weapons, enough stockpiles, or enough bandwidth to come to its rescue. And that is music to the ears of some Indo-Pacific partners, but not Beijing, because behind this growing Japan, Australia, India defense network is one common concern: China. So, why is Japan suddenly looking beyond Washington? What does this mean for India? And how is this growing Indo Japan partnership threatening China? For decades, Japan's security strategy was built around one overwhelming assumption: America would be there. But wars in Ukraine and the Middle East have exposed America's vulnerability. Weapons have disappeared at astonishing speed, ammunition consumed in real time, and the Pentagon now facing an acute weapons and munition shortage. So, with Washington managing multiple unending conflict theaters, Japan is getting jittery. It cannot simply assume that ally America will turn up as it navigates what it calls China's growing military actions. And that is pushing Tokyo towards something new: defense industrial diversification. Not replacing America, but building more partners. And this is where Japan's relationship with India gets particularly interesting. India is not an American ally. It has its own strategic autonomy, also has a massive domestic defense industrial ambition, and that actually makes India an attractive partner. The two countries are already discussing defense equipment cooperation, including Japan's Unicorn stealth communication system used on the Mogami class frigates. In fact, India and Japan are co-developing the Unicorn, or the Unified Complex Radio Antenna System, for Indian Navy warships. And once two countries successfully co-develop one military technology, the door automatically opens to more. And then there is aviation. Japan is planning to send its F-2 fighter jets to India for a bilateral exercise. This would be a significant one because the F-2 has never been deployed to India for such an exercise before. So Japan and India have already conducted fighter exercises. Now that relationship is moving towards a more sophisticated military interoperability. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi is expected in India this week for talks with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. Japanese officials say that the defense equipment cooperation, including Unicorn, will be on the agenda. So will expanded military exercises and the security situation in the Indo-Pacific, including China. Koizumi is also visiting Australia. There, Japan is pursuing deeper defense industrial cooperation around Canberra's multi-billion-dollar acquisition of Mogami-class frigates. So this is not an India-only initiative. Japan is building a network. Australia in the south, India in the Indian Ocean. The United States remains its treaty ally, and Tokyo is increasingly linking these relationships through defense production, logistics, and supply chain resilience. Now, why is all of this making China uncomfortable? Well, look at geography. Japan in the East China Sea, Australia in the South Pacific and Indian Ocean, India in the Indian Ocean and along the Himalayan frontier. And increasingly, these countries are talking about interoperability, supply chains, drones, warships, and military technology. The common denominator: China's growing military power and increasingly assertive behavior. Japan's latest defense thinking has described China as its quote-unquote greatest strategic challenge. Beijing's maritime activities in the East China Sea, South China Sea, and Western Pacific is a major concern for Tokyo. So Tokyo is building what you would call a network of capable middle powers, not an Asian NATO, not a replacement for the US alliance, but a web of countries that can support each other militarily and industrially. And there is another reason that Japan is doing this now. Trust in American commitment is no longer being taken for granted. Political uncertainty in Washington has raised questions among US allies about how reliably America could respond. Japan's answer appears to be, don't abandon the US alliance, build enough partnerships that you are not completely dependent on. For India, this could be a significant opening. Japan has advanced technologies, India has scale, manufacturing, ambition, and a huge defense market. Australia brings sophisticated military capabilities and a strong US alliance. Now put these together and you get something bigger than individual defense deals, a more interconnected Indo-Pacific defense ecosystem. And that could eventually mean shared platforms, joint production, common supply chains, and more frequent military exercises. For India, it also strengthens a broader strategic objective, reduce dependence on any single country for critical defense technology. Japan may be looking beyond Washington, but for India, this could be the chance to move beyond being a defense buyer and become a defense partner. And as Tokyo, New Delhi and Canberra move closer, Beijing may have to contend with a very different Indo-Pacific than it once was used to. You're watching Times Axis. I'm Aditi Prasad, and if you liked this explainer, do click on the bell icon to subscribe and never miss a Times Axis update.
Nuclear weapon.
The old rules are breaking. Alliances are shifting.
Apologize again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Wars are redrawing maps. Oil routes can shake economies overnight. One election in America can impact markets in Mumbai.
No tax on tips.
One move by China can alter the balance in Asia. One conflict in West Asia can hit every Indian household. This is no longer a distant story. This is our story. Your story. Because for the first time in decades, India is not watching from the sidelines. India is rising. India is negotiating. India is balancing rivals. India is building military strength. India is shaping trade routes. India is becoming central to the new global order. And yet, most global news is still told through someone else's lens. Washington's lens, Beijing's lens, London's lens. But where is India's lens? Where is the platform that explains the world from our perspective? Welcome to India's Axis, a new destination for geopolitics, strategy and power seen through India's eyes. From Neighborhood Watch to the biggest global stories that matter to you. Why tensions in the Taiwan Strait matter to India. How one move by China can affect India's security. What turmoil in Pakistan means for regional stability. How Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bhutan shape India's neighborhood. Why oil choke points can hit your wallet. How wars abroad can reshape India's security. This is not noise. This is not shouting. This is not recycled headlines. This is sharp, intelligent storytelling. Daily explainers, war room analysis, strategic conversations. Because news is everywhere, but perspective is rare, and in the age of confusion, clarity is power. Axis is for the audience that wants more than headlines. The axis of global power is shifting. India is at the center of that shift. It's time the world was explained accordingly, to understand the world through India's strategic lens. Subscribe now.